For years, the future of the car industry looked completely decided. Electric vehicles were breaking sales records. Battery technology was improving every year. Governments around the world were investing billions into charging infrastructure, and almost every major automaker was racing toward the same destination: batteries. If you had asked people just a few years ago what would power the next generation of cars, almost everyone would have given you the same answer: electricity. Hydrogen, on the other hand, was slowly disappearing from the conversation. It was called too expensive, too inefficient, too difficult to scale. Many people believed hydrogen had already lost the race before it had even begun. And honestly, there were good reasons to think that. Hydrogen infrastructure remained limited. Producing clean hydrogen at scale was expensive. Battery-powered EVs kept improving faster than expected. Every year, the gap seemed to grow wider. Little by little, the industry stopped asking, "Can hydrogen compete?" It started asking, "Why are we still talking about hydrogen at all?" But while almost everyone was looking in one direction, Toyota quietly kept looking in another. No dramatic announcements, no promises that batteries were finished, no claims that EVs were dead. Instead, Toyota kept investing in something the rest of the industry had almost written off: hydrogen. At first, many people thought it was a mistake. Some analysts even questioned whether Toyota had fallen behind the EV revolution. Critics argued the company had waited too long to embrace battery electric vehicles while competitors were moving faster and attracting more attention. For a while, that criticism seemed fair. Tesla was expanding rapidly. BYD was becoming a global EV powerhouse. New battery technologies were making headlines almost every month. Meanwhile, Toyota continued talking about hybrids, hydrogen, and what it called a multi-pathway approach to reaching carbon neutrality. To many people, that sounded like hesitation, but Toyota saw it differently. The company believed the future of transportation wouldn't be built around just one solution. Different countries have different infrastructure, different industries have different needs, and different vehicles solve different problems. A small city car doesn't face the same challenges as a long-haul truck. A delivery van doesn't operate like a mining vehicle. A race car doesn't behave like a family SUV. Toyota's argument was surprisingly simple. Why should every vehicle be forced to use the exact same technology? That question became the foundation of everything the company did over the next several years. Instead of betting everything on one answer, Toyota kept investing in multiple ones: hybrid vehicles, battery electric vehicles, hydrogen fuel cells, and perhaps the most controversial of them all, hydrogen combustion engines. Now, this is where many people get confused. When they hear the words hydrogen engine, they immediately imagine a fuel cell vehicle like the Toyota Mirai. But that's not what we're talking about here. A fuel cell vehicle generates electricity from hydrogen to power an electric motor. A hydrogen combustion engine is completely different. It still uses pistons, still burns fuel inside cylinders, still feels much closer to a traditional internal combustion engine. The difference is, instead of burning gasoline, it burns hydrogen. That distinction matters, because Toyota isn't trying to erase everything engineers have learned over the last 100 years. It's asking a different question. What if the internal combustion engine still has a future, just with a different fuel? For many people, that idea sounded impossible. Some dismissed it immediately, others called it a waste of time. After all, if battery electric vehicles were already improving so quickly, why spend years developing another type of engine? Toyota had an answer, not in a press conference, not in a marketing campaign, but on a racetrack. Instead of hiding its technology inside research labs, Toyota decided to test it under one of the harshest environments imaginable: endurance racing. Hours of continuous high-speed driving, extreme temperatures, constant stress, maximum engine load. Because if a hydrogen engine could survive there, it could teach engineers lessons no laboratory ever could. That's exactly why Toyota entered hydrogen-powered race cars into Japan's Super Taikyu Endurance Championship. Not because racing sells more cars, but because racing exposes weaknesses faster than almost anything else. Every lap generated new data. Every mechanical problem revealed another engineering challenge. Every improvement moved the technology one step closer to becoming practical. Year after year, the cars became faster, more reliable, more efficient. Toyota quietly evolved from using gaseous hydrogen to liquid hydrogen, solving one challenge after another through real-world competition rather than laboratory simulations. More recently, the company has even demonstrated technologies like superconducting liquid hydrogen pumps to improve efficiency and increase usable tank capacity in its race program. Most people never noticed, because while social media was busy arguing about battery range, Toyota was solving completely different engineering problems, and that's exactly why. Today, the conversation around hydrogen is starting to change. Not because batteries failed, they didn't. Not because EVs are disappearing, they're not. But because Toyota may have been right about one thing from the very beginning. The future might not belong to a single technology. It might belong to multiple technologies working side by side. And if that's true, then the biggest question isn't whether hydrogen can replace electric vehicles. The real question is, why did Toyota refuse to give up on hydrogen when almost everyone else already had? To understand why Toyota never walked away from hydrogen, you first have to understand something most people never hear about. Toyota was never trying to win a popularity contest. It was trying to solve a problem, and that problem wasn't electric cars, it was carbon emissions. Those two things sound similar, but they're not. For years, the automotive industry treated battery electric vehicles as the only realistic path toward a cleaner future. And to be fair, EVs have achieved something remarkable. They're quieter, more efficient, and they're helping reduce emissions in many parts of the world. Toyota agrees with that, but the company also kept asking another question. What happens in places where batteries aren't the perfect answer? Think about a long-haul truck crossing an entire country, a construction vehicle working 16 hours a day, or heavy equipment operating in remote locations where charging infrastructure barely exists. Stopping for long charging sessions isn't always practical. Building thousands of high-powered charging stations isn't always easy. And in some industries, time isn't just money, it's everything. That's where Toyota believes hydrogen still has a role to play. Not as a replacement for every battery, but as another option. That's the philosophy Toyota calls its multi-pathway strategy. Instead of betting on a single technology, it continues investing in hybrids, battery electric vehicles, fuel cell vehicles, and hydrogen combustion engines because different markets and use cases may need different solutions. Now, let's talk about the engine itself. At first glance, it looks surprisingly ordinary. There's no futuristic electric motor sitting in the middle, no giant battery pack running underneath the floor. Open the hood, and you'll still recognize pistons, connecting rods, crankshafts, valves. It still feels like an engine, because it is. The biggest difference is the fuel. Instead of injecting gasoline into the cylinders, Toyota injects hydrogen. That hydrogen mixes with air and burns inside the engine. Power is still created through combustion. The driver still experiences the sound, the response, and much of the character people love about performance cars. But the emissions are dramatically different from a traditional gasoline engine because the fuel itself is different. Hydrogen combustion primarily produces water vapor, although controlling nitrogen oxide emissions remains an important engineering challenge, and that's exactly why Toyota didn't stop at theory. The company wanted to know if this technology could survive the real world. So instead of building one concept car, taking a few promotional photos, and moving on, Toyota did something far more difficult. It raced it, not for 5 minutes, not for a marketing video, for 24 hours. Anyone who follows motorsport knows endurance racing is brutal. Engines spend hours at high RPM. Temperatures constantly change. Components are pushed to their limits. If there's a weakness, the race will find it. That's why Toyota kept returning to Japan's Super Taikyu Endurance Championship. Every race became another engineering experiment. The first hydrogen-powered GR Corolla used compressed gaseous hydrogen. It worked. But engineers quickly found new limitations: storage, refueling, packaging, driving range. Instead of abandoning the project, Toyota kept improving it. Eventually, the company moved toward liquid hydrogen. Now, that might not sound like a big change, but in engineering terms, it was massive. Hydrogen gas takes up a huge amount of space. Cool it down to around minus 253 degrees Celsius, and it becomes liquid. Suddenly, you can store much more hydrogen in the same volume. That means longer driving distances. But nothing comes for free. Keeping hydrogen that cold is incredibly difficult. The tanks become more complex, the pumps become more advanced. Every component has to survive temperatures colder than almost anything found in nature. That's why many companies never even attempted it. Toyota did, and they kept improving it. In recent racing developments, Toyota introduced technologies like a superconducting liquid hydrogen pump, allowing more efficient fuel delivery while also increasing usable tank capacity. The company even paired the latest hydrogen race car with its direct automatic transmission to continue testing the technology under extreme racing conditions. Notice something interesting. None of these upgrades make flashy headlines. Most people never hear about improved pumps, cryogenic storage, boil-off gas management, or superconducting motors. But that's exactly how real engineering works. Breakthroughs rarely happen because of one magical invention. They happen because hundreds of small problems get solved, one after another. One year, a stronger pump. Next year, better cooling, then improved durability, then safer refueling, then better efficiency. Piece by piece, the technology evolves, and that's exactly what Toyota has been doing while much of the world focused almost entirely on batteries. But here's where things become really interesting. Even if Toyota builds the perfect hydrogen engine, that doesn't automatically mean hydrogen wins, because a great engine is useless if people can't easily fuel it. And that's the challenge that has followed hydrogen from the very beginning. It's not just an engineering problem, it's an infrastructure problem. And solving that may be even harder than building the engine itself. At this point, it's tempting to think Toyota has already found the perfect alternative to electric cars, but that wouldn't be true. Because no technology is perfect, and Toyota knows that better than anyone. The biggest challenge facing hydrogen today isn't the engine, it isn't reliability, and it isn't performance, it's infrastructure. Right now, if you own a gasoline car, finding a fuel station takes minutes. If you own an electric car, charging stations are becoming more common every year. But hydrogen, that's a different story. Hydrogen refueling stations are still limited in many countries. Building them is expensive, transporting hydrogen is complex, and storing it safely requires specialized equipment. Those challenges have slowed adoption, even as the technology itself continues to improve. And that's exactly why many people dismissed hydrogen, not because the engine didn't work, but because the world around it wasn't ready. Toyota never denied that reality. Instead, the company kept repeating the same message. The future doesn't have to depend on one technology. Different countries, different industries, and different customers will need different solutions. Think about it. A family living in a city with thousands of charging stations might choose a battery electric vehicle. A logistics company running trucks across long distances might prefer hydrogen if refueling infrastructure becomes available. Heavy industries, ports, mining operations, commercial transport, these are very different environments from daily city driving. That's why Toyota keeps describing hydrogen as part of the future, not the entire future. And honestly, that makes the company's strategy much easier to understand. Toyota isn't trying to prove batteries are wrong. It's trying to prove the future is bigger than batteries alone. That's an important difference. Now let's come back to the question we asked at the very beginning. Did Toyota actually prove everyone wrong? The answer is both yes and no. If someone claims hydrogen has already beaten electric vehicles, that's simply not true. Battery electric vehicles continue to grow around the world, and they're likely to remain the dominant choice for many passenger cars in the coming years. But if someone says, hydrogen is dead, that doesn't seem true either. Toyota has spent years proving that hydrogen combustion engines can operate in some of the toughest environments imaginable, not just inside research labs, but on real racetracks, not just as concept vehicles, but as machines pushed to their limits for hours at a time. Every race completed, every engineering problem solved, every improvement made, sent the same message. Hydrogen wasn't standing still, it was evolving. And perhaps that's what so many people misunderstood. Most breakthrough technologies don't arrive all at once. They improve quietly, year after year, one problem at a time, until suddenly, people realize they've been changing all along. History is full of examples. The first smartphones weren't perfect. The first electric cars weren't practical for everyone. The first reusable rockets failed repeatedly before they transformed the space industry. Innovation almost never moves in a straight line. Hydrogen may follow the same path, or it may remain a niche solution used only where batteries aren't practical. Today, nobody can honestly say for certain, and that's exactly why this story matters. Not because Toyota has already won, not because electric vehicles have already lost, but because one company refused to follow the crowd. While much of the industry focused on improving batteries, Toyota continued asking difficult questions, questions many others had already stopped asking. What if long-haul transport needs something different? What if combustion engines still have a role in a carbon-neutral future? What if the smartest strategy isn't choosing one technology, but developing several at the same time? Whether history proves Toyota completely right or only partially right, one thing is already clear: the company forced the entire industry to keep thinking beyond a single solution. And sometimes, that's how the biggest innovations begin, not by proving everyone else wrong overnight, but by refusing to stop exploring a path that everyone else abandoned. The future of transportation probably won't be written by one company, or one battery, or one engine. It will be written by the technologies that solve real-world problems, better than anything that came before them. Maybe batteries will dominate, maybe hydrogen will find its place. Maybe both will shape the roads of the future together. Right now, the story is still being written, and that's what makes this one of the most fascinating engineering races of our time. If you enjoyed this documentary and want more deep dives into the technologies shaping the future of transportation, don't forget to subscribe. Every day, we separate real engineering from internet hype and explore the breakthroughs that could change the world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.